Hello friends, welcome to Edwiki Learning channel. Please do subscribe to get more updates on the DevOps concepts. This video is part of the full course AWS DevOps Practitioner training. Please do check the description below to get the link for the complete full course. Without further delay, let's get into the video. Thank you.
So first let me talk about the requirement, guys. Okay, so what is Apache HTTP web server and how it is helping us. Okay, so the thing is, I have a EC2 instance that is created in the AWS cloud, and you are all know that the only purpose that I created the EC2 server is to run a website, and that website will be accessible by my users, and through that website I'm going to do a business. That's the general idea, right guys? Correct? So at the end of the day, the goal is to run a website out of this EC2 server, right? And we will be running some sort of business from that website, right? Website or a web app, or in very shortcut, right? I can even call it as an app. Make sense? So that means I'm going to run a app in the EC2 server, and that app is what the end users are going to access, and I'll be running the business using that application in a shortcut app, right? So the server is created in the AWS cloud, and obviously it will be running in any one of the availability zone of that region, right? And here is my end user who is trying to access the application that is running in the EC2 server. So what was the application so far we are accessing from the EC2 server, guys? SHS, right? Just to recall the previous topics one more time, correct? So as a user, we were able to access the SHS application running on the EC2 server, and that is helping us to logging in, right? Because the SHS application purpose is to give you the login services, and we are getting that login and all, right? So here the purpose is the user is trying to access a website from the browser. So the user is sending the request to the EC2 server, and then the EC2 server is going to respond back. As we already know that whenever the user, I mean to say the client, right? Whenever the client is sending the request to the server, always the client has to send the request to the specific port number based on which service that the client would like to access from the server, right? So here HTTP is one of the service that is providing the web application to the users on port number 80. HTTPS is the service protocol that is giving you the web application in a secured manner to the end client or to the client, right, on port number 443. So there are two ports that are being used when it comes to accessing the web application from the server, right? And the client will decide, or the client will mention which port number that he wanted to use while he is sending the request, correct? So by default, right, we will be using the port number 80 in this today's exercise. We will talk about the port number 443, how this HTTPS will be working in upcoming lectures, right? So when we are using port number 80 to access the HTTP service from the EC2 server, the client is sending on port number 80 the request. Like previously, I was sending the request to the port number 22, right, to get the SHS response. Now I'm sending the request to the port number 80. Obviously, the security group should have the inbound rule. The inbound rule is allowing the port number 80. Then only the request will be allowed. Then your request will be hitting on the EC2 server. When any request that comes to the specific port number, right, and as we know already, there should be some service must be up and running on the EC2 server EC2 server responsible for that port number, correct? In this case, HTTPD is the daemon or is the service which is running on the EC2 server that is responsible to listen on port number 80, and whichever the request that came in, that will be taken care. And the HTTPD is the service which is offering the web application to the user, right? Like usually if you go and access any website, you will get some images, videos, some content, something like that, right? So how your website should appear, all the website related data will be located in a specific location in the server, right? The data, or it could be a code or whatever it is, whatever is needed basically to show you the website, that is something is available in a specific folder. The default location where the website related code or the data will be available is /var/www/html. So that is one of the absolute path available in the EC2 server. In that location, you have to keep the website related code and the required data, how you are expecting the website to be appeared for the end user. Then whenever the request come to the EC2 server, the HTTPD service will listen to port number 80, will go to var www.html location. There, whatever the content is there, it will pick up that content, and the HTTPD giving the response back to the user. Whatever the response that the HTTPD has given back, again the response has to pass through the outbound rules of the security group, as we know already, right? And by default, the outbound rules are allowing all the traffic, so we don't need to worry about changing anything in the outbound rule. That response will be given to the user, whoever has requested this web application, and whatever the response that is came in, that response will be will be loaded as a website. So far so good. So what's happening here? That means in a single wording, whenever the user is browsing the website on the browser using like www.edserver.com, that's one of the sample website that I take on here in this presentation, right? The expectation is that request should come to my EC2 server. EC2 server should give the response back. That response should be get loaded as a web app for you. Are we good with this? So here the HTTPD, a service that I'm talking about, which has to be running in the EC2 server to listen on port number 80 and give the response back. That HTTPD service is called as a Apache HTTP web server application. That's a full form of your HTTPD service, right? In the Apache HTTP web server, right? Apache is the open source organization name, and the HTTP web server, right? HTTP means it is basically the like hypertext markup like protocol, right? And web server is just a software name, but like basically whichever the services that are offering the web applications, those we will be calling it as a web servers. So this is just a Apache HTTP web server, right? Now how to implement it? Because today I wanted to access one website that is serving by my EC2 server. The same thing I'm just representing in a different way, guys. So as part of the implementation, right, what I'm doing is I will take one EC2 server. In that EC2 server, I'm going to ensure that the Apache HTTPD web server services are running. then I will ensure that the required website code and the images or the videos, whatever I wanted to show in my website, I wanted to keep them in a default location where www.html. Then your EC2 server will have its own IP address, right? So whenever the client is sending the request to that particular IP, right, on port number 80, the request will go to the server. The server will be responding back. Then your website will be loaded there. Good with this? Now we'll get into the implementation part, guys. So I'll just go to the AWS Management Console and I can see there is one EC2 server that is currently running, and I wanted to configure this server to act as a web server. I will just go and logging into this instance from my PuTTY. This is where I'm using the SSH client software to logging into the server to connect to the SSH services on my server side on port number 22. As much as possible, I'm trying to use the full statement to recollect the previous concepts, guys. Okay. So I just have logged into the root. Now, what is the purpose here? This EC2 server, I wanted to make it as a web server. So help me, guys. The command in the chat window, usually, what is the command that you use to manage the services? Stopping the service, starting the service, restarting the service, right? So systemctl is the command. Let me see the status. Which service that I'm trying to look for the status now? Previously, I had looked for SSHD, right? But now I'm looking for the service called HTTPD. This is the service which is responsible for me to give you the web applications. You see that the HTTPD service is not found. That means all the services that you are trying to use in your EC2 server will not be available by default, guys. The SSHD service was available by default. The moment when AWS is launching the EC2 server, you got the SSHD service, and I just started off using that. Why SSHD service is available by default? Because that is the default mandatory service that should be up and running in the EC2 servers. Then only the users can logging in, right? Or else the people cannot logging in first of all. So AWS will ensure that when the EC2 servers are getting launched, the SSHD service is available by default and you just logging into and use it. But any other services that you are trying to operate on, those will not be available by default. If the service is not available, you need to install the service, guys, right? How will you install the service in the Linux system? When it comes to installation process, again, my terminology will be changes. Rather me using the term called I'm going to install the service, let me use the terminology called I'm going to install the application. Make sense, guys? The HTTPD is actually an application, right? Which is the Apache HTTP web server application, right? That's a like full form. When it comes to the Linux side, yes, this is a service which is going to be running, right? So I'm going to install the Apache HTTP web server application in the Linux system, right? And even from the installation perspective, the terminology will be little changes. Rather using the term called application, I can use the term called package as well. That means I'm going to install the Apache HTTP web server packages in the Linux system. That's the actual statement that I'm going to use now, right? So just for understanding, package, application, software, all give you the same meaning, guys, right? Usually if it is a Windows system, you use the terminology called software. Hey, go and install the software, right? When it comes to the Linux, we need to use the terminology called package. Hey, install the package. But install the package, install the software, install the application. all give you the same meaning only. Okay, so I'm going to install the Apache web server packages in the Linux system. To install any package in the Linux system, you need to use a command called yum. Specify yum, then the command called install, then the package name. Here the package name is httpd. So this is the package that I wanted to install, and you just hit enter. Whenever you run this yum install command and give the package name that you wanted to install, the yum command is going to download this package automatically from the internet, right? And somewhere you can see that the total download size, right? So it is going to download this package from the internet, then it will install on your server, guys. You don't need to download separately and install separately, no. As part of the installation, the yum command, which is now called as a package manager, because the yum command is helping us to deal with the packages, right? So yum is a package manager. When you install the package, it will download the package and it will install it for you. The only thing is it will ask for your confirmation. You see this? Hey, to install this HTTPD package, I need to download total this much of size. Are you okay for this? If you say yes, then the packages will be downloaded and will be installed. If you say no, then it will skip the installation. Usually, when you are installing any package using the yum package manager, it is not only installing that specific package that you have been asked for, it will be installing some dependencies as well automatically. You see these dependencies? In the sense, maybe if this package has to be installed and running successfully, it may need some other dependency packages, some other dependency software, guys. The yum can calculate automatically what are the dependency applications or the dependency softwares that it would be needed. Those will be installed automatically for you. You don't need to worry about those dependencies. You just say that, hey, this is what I need, and the dependencies will be calculated. All those dependencies also will be downloaded from the internet and will be get installed it for you. So in this case, though you ask for one package, total it is going to download and install 12 packages, guys. Good. Now whenever you are installing any package, right, how or from where it is going to download the package? I'm saying like the package will be downloaded from internet, right? But from where exactly it is downloading it from the internet, right? So the operating system vendor, let's say in my case, this is the Amazon Linux operating system, right? Right? The Amazon Linux operating system, the vendor is Amazon company, right? The Amazon companies are maintaining the repositories in the internet. Those repository names called as Amazon Linux repository. Repository in the sense they are keeping all the required OS level packages, softwares in one specific location in the internet. That I'm going to call as a Amazon Linux repository. So the yum command is actually connecting to this Amazon Linux repository in the over the internet, and it is downloading this package from this particular repository only. Good. So it's Amazon responsibility to keep these packages available in their repositories. That way, right, the command, the yum can connect to this repository and can download the packages. All these things will happen behind the screens for you automatically. You don't need to worry about any of this. By default, whenever you run the yum install command, it is going to download the latest version of your package from this particular repositories. Usually, any software will have multiple versions, right? So it will try to get the latest version. Always the package version will be like this. You see this, like 2.4.58-1 and dot and some the platform like architectural, right? So here, like whatever the number that you see here, the highlighted one, that is the version of your package. After the dot, whatever you see, that is describing that the package which is compatible for which operating system. You see that it's saying that AMZN 2023. That means it is going to download the package that is compatible for Amazon Linux 2023 operating system. It is doing all this automatically for you, and it is downloading the 64-bit compatible package for you. And this is the total size of the package or the software that it is going to download it for you. Now, how would your yum command know that it has to download the package from the Amazon Linux repository? When I say repository, that is also a kind of a website, guys, correct? Though I'm calling it as a repository, which is the technical terminology, right? Somehow this is some website. Like the Amazon people are actually maintaining all the packages in some of the website, and the yum command is connecting to that website and trying to download those packages, correct? But from the technical perspective, I'm calling it as a repository. Then the question here is, how would your yum command know that it has to connect to which Amazon Linux repository? What is the Amazon Linux repository website? How to connect there? Where to connect? It has to know all this information, right? So for now, let me put N here. I am not installing this package. Operation is aborted. So the M is actually maintaining under etc m.repos.d location, right? Under etc m.repos.d location, there is a file called Amazon Linux.repo, right? In this file, right? In this file, it is containing the details of the Amazon repositories. If I see the content of this file, you see the Amazon Linux repository, and this is the URL, guys. You see this website name, https:// and something is there. So this is actually the website, right? From like to which website it has to connect to download the packages. So all that information is already available in the specific repository file located in the etc m.repos.d location. When AWS has created a EC2 server for you, right? So all that information is already kept it in this file. We don't need to do any changes for this. But I'm showing how the yum command yum will know that to which repository it has to connect all these things, right? So the information is already available in the specific file. It will go to that file and it will connect it to the repo and it will try to install it for you. When you are installing the package, you must have to specify the package name like this, right? Sometimes if you don't know what is the package name, I can't install just like that, right? It will definitely tell that, hey, the package is not available, right? So if you don't know what is the package name that you wanted to install, then you can even search for this. Hey, I want to install the package. Maybe I want to install the package that is having something called Apache. You can just search for this, okay? So it will show you all the packages whichever is matching this particular pattern, right? And some description of the package as well, something like this. So somewhere you can see, okay, HTTPD is the package name that is for Apache HTTP web server. Okay, this is what I wanted to, right? So like that, we can do the search and even we can identify the correct package name. Then we can run yum install command to install that particular package. By default, when you install a package, it will ask for the confirmation. Are you okay for this or not? If you say yes, it will proceed. If you say yen, it will not be proceeded. If you don't want this option, like if you don't want it to be asking your confirmation, right? We can give this -y flag in the command itself. Then it will not ask for your confirmation. It will consider that you already accepted. It will proceed for the installation. You see, this time it is not asking a question, right? Directly it went ahead and downloaded the packages and installed. The installation is now completed. You cannot install all the whatever the package that you would like to in using the yum command, guys, right? Whichever the packages that are kept by the Amazon in their Amazon repository, only those packages you can install using the yum command here. Usually the Amazon will be keeping certain important, popular and operating system specific packages that they will be keeping into the repository, not all. Whenever you don't find the package which you wanted to install on the Amazon repositories, then there are few alternate ways are there to download and install it for you. I will talk about how to install the packages which are not part of the Amazon repositories in upcoming lectures when we get that kind of the requirement. Now, I don't want to be in this location, so let me come out, guys, so that it will be good. Don't ask me that why I'm running the cd command. It's always better you to be in the home directory when you are running the commands. Don't be wherever you wanted to. You got me? That's just a best practice, no other reason, right? For any reason, right? If you do any rm command, right, I don't want it is going and deleting some important files, right? If you are in different location. Got me? That's only the reason. Well, so whenever you install the package, right, it is definitely installing the service for you. Systemctl status HTTPD. Sometime back it was telling that the HTTPD service was not found. Now you see that the service is found, but the service is currently inactive, right? Now you need to run systemctl start command to start this service. Now you verify the status one more time. Now you see that the HTTPD service is currently active, running, and you see that the HTTP service is currently listening on port number 80, and you see that the USR has been HTTPD is the actual absolute path where this particular service is available, and it is currently running for you. When the service is listening on port number 80, if you wanted to confirm that again, you can always run the command called netstart command, correct? Here you can see that the HTTPD service is currently running with this PID. It is listening on port number 80. This is the confirmation that the service is currently running on port number 80. Like the SSH application, even the HTTPD application will be using some configuration files, right? Like how the SSH was using the configuration file under the /etc/sshs location, same way the HTTPD application also using the configuration in the location called /etc/httpd. What is the similarity that you identified, guys, here? etc, right? That means 90% of the cases, any software, any application, any package that you installed on the Linux system, right? Those will be keeping their configuration information in the etc location only. So that is the purpose of etc, right? So under the etc HTTPD, I can see some files. The web server software will use them. Out of all these, under the confd location, let me do conf location, right? Under the conf location, you can see the file called httpd.conf. This is the configuration file where the web server software related settings will be there, right? How I edited the sssd underscore config file to do some changes, right? Same thing. So this file has some configuration, right? You need to go there and edit this configuration how you want it to be operated on. You see some settings here. Listen 80, which is telling to HTTP application that hey, you will listen on port number 80. That's the reason why my HTTPD is listening on port number 80. It is reading the configuration from this file, right? The server route, which is telling that this is the location where the configuration data will be there. We don't need to understand line by line, guys, right? Just some important information that I'm going to. You see here document route. This particular parameter is telling that hey, web server, right? The web application related all the code and any other information will be available on var www.html. So the var www.html is called as a document root folder because this is the location where you need to keep the website related code, how you are expecting the website to be appeared. Good. If you do little scroll down again, it has some settings, guys. I'm just showing the settings, right? So here you can see that in the var www.html folder, which is the file that it has to look for, right? And you see this index.html is the default file that it has to look for. Sets the file that the Apache will serve if a directory is requested, right? So index.html is the default file name that it is looking for. Okay, this is the enough information for now. Let me come out. Now let me try to access the website, guys, because my EC2 server is currently configured to listen on port number 80, right? If any client is now sending the request on 80, my server is ready to take the request and give the response back, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? Right? Now what I do is I'll take this IP address. This is my EC2 server IP, right? Now let me send a request on port number 80, right? Always when you are sending the request to the server, you should be using the client software. Like when I was sending the request to the SSH services, I have used the SSH client software like PuTTY. Similarly, to send the request to the port number 80, which is the HTTPD service port, you need to use the web client, right? Your browser is acting as a web client. So take a browser. In the browser URL, you specify that, hey, I want to use HTTP protocol or HTTP service colon // and specify the IP that you wanted to use colon specify the port number to which port that you wanted to send the request. This is how you need to send a request to your EC2 server on port number 80 by following the HTTP protocol, guys. This is the syntax. Now if you hit enter, it is sending the request to the EC2 server on the port number 80 and it will try to get a response. So here I'm not getting the response. The only reason is it is sending the request, right? First it will go to the security group. If the request is allowed in the security group, then only it will be reaching the EC2 server, right? So here I'm not getting the response. What could be the reason now? Right? So in my EC2 server, right? In my EC2 server, the port number 80 is actually in listen state, but the problem is the security group is not allowing the request at this time. So go to EC2 server, go to security, open the security group that is attached to the EC2 server, go to edit inbound rules, add a rule. Now in the drop down you choose HTTP because I wanted to allow the HTTP, which is port number 80 by default. Let's say I want to allow anywhere. For now use IPv4 guys. What is IPv6? I'll talk about later. I want to allow this anywhere and click on save the rules. Now let me come back to here one more time and let me try sending the request. You see now my website is coming. I'm getting some response at least. When you are using the web client and requesting for the website, always the syntax will be like this. The protocol HTTP : the IP and the port number. If you wanted to give, you need to give the port number using a :80 guys. But the web clients are using port number 80 by default. Hence, you don't need to give the :80 here. Both are same. Even the SSH client is adding the port number 22 by default for you, right? Same thing. The web client know that 80 is the default. It will use the 80, though you are not giving the port number there. But if you want to give the port number, the syntax will be like this: :80. And I got my website here. Now, since I have configured my EC2 server to act as a web server, which is serving the web application to the clients, I'm going to call this EC2 server as a web server. Is this the right terminology, guys? I'm just giving the name for my server now, right? I'm calling it as a web server. Now, I don't want the website to be like this. This is the default website, right? I want the website to be as per my wish. I wanted to customize my website now, right? So go to your EC2 server, go to where www.html, which is the default document root folder. By default, this document root folder is empty folder. Now you create a file here. What is the name of the file, guys? The default name of the file should be index.html. Now you should know the reason why my file name should be like this, correct? Because the configuration file is saying that the file name should be index.html and the name should be like this. Now, what is .html? So in this file, now I need to put a website related code, right? How the website to be appeared. So the code that I'm going to keep here is the HTML code. This is my first website. I'm just using the HTML code, guys. Now let me save the file, cat the file. This is a very simple one-line HTML code. The HTML is the programming language, right, which will help us to write a code which will be converting that code it into a web page format, right? Now if I go and refresh my website here, you see that whatever I kept it in the index.html, the same line is now coming as a website to me. So basically here this h1 will tell that heading format. So this line should be shown to my users in the browser as a heading format. That's what I'm trying to put a HTML code, and you see that it is coming as a bold format. So far so good. I'm just confirming that yes, now my website is coming from this EC2 server. I'm sure that. And now it's your choice, like how beautiful your website should be. You write a HTML code and you keep the code in this file, and that's it. Your website will come in that way. Here, we don't need to understand how the HTML programming language works, and we don't need to write the code also, right? So we just need to understand how this overall web app will work. What is Apache web server, how it works, port number 80, services, right? We just need to worry about all of this. We don't need to worry about this code. If needed be in a real time, the developers will be there who will be writing the code, and they will be keeping the code into the right location, and it will start working. Make sense? Okay. Maybe just to make it more beautiful, right? Maybe I don't want this a simple liner, right? I wanted to have little more. So I can get some sample website code from internet and I can try this out as well. Right? So in general, you can download any sample HTML code and can download and can upload it over there. So how many of you know ChatGPT, guys? Usually, if you don't know anything, you will be asking the Google, right? Hey Google, tell me this, correct? Now the people are slowly moving from Google to a ChatGPT. Okay, so chat.openai.com is the ChatGPT website, and you need to register an account in the ChatGPT by going to the sign up. Once you got account created, then you go to login and log in with your email. Let me try logging into. Right. Once you log into your ChatGPT account, then you just ask here. Let's say, can you give me sample HTML code? So nice, right? So this is how the ChatGPT works, right? And this is the sample HTML code that it has given for me. All what you need to do is copy the code, go to my EC2 server, open index.html, remove this line, insert mode, and I'm keeping this sample code, save the file, come back to here and refresh the website. You see now I got some sample code, guys. Right? So we are not worrying about how beautiful my website is there at this time, because that is something the developer's responsibility, but I'm showing some stuff to understand that uh, the way how the web apps will be working, not much, right? And this is how we need to use the ChatGPT, guys, and start practicing the ChatGPT. That definitely helps you or save a lot of time. The same output, if you wanted to get it from Google, it gonna take a lot of time, guys. But it is in ChatGPT, it will be very quick, and you can ask any question that you like it. Like just to show you how to use the ChatGPT, right? How to fix how to fix let's say not able to write to a file in Linux. Okay, interesting, right? So I'm not able to write to a file in the Linux, and it is telling, hey, so this is a permission section, see your permission, give the W permissions, or maybe ensure that your ownership or group is changed, right? And you see it is giving the W permission using chmod command. Pretty much it is giving a lot of information with more explanatory as well, right? That's how it works, guys. So far so good. Now let me come back. Well, so I'm happy that my website is now accessible using the IP address, but this is what is my goal, right? So always the people like to access the website using the name, like www dot, correct? So how do you access the website using the name rather the IP address, right? Let me see that. Sorry. So whenever you are expecting the website to be coming or the website name, the only thing is the name has to be converted it into the IP address. Makes sense, right? Because IP is the one which will be allowing us to reach the server. The EC2 server is accessible using this IP address, right? That's what we know already. So if you want to access the website using the name, ensure that your name is converted into the IP address, like in your mobile. Let's say if you want to dial to your friend's mobile number, right? You have to dial the number or else you dial the name. But if you dial the name, what will happen behind the screen? The name will be converted it into a number, then it actually dialing the number only, correct? It will never ever dial the name directly. Agree with me, guys? The name is just for our convenience to remember so easily rather remembering the number, correct? So you feed the mapping. This name should be resoluted into this particular number. That is how we need to do some mapping. Then whenever you use the name will be resoluted into the number and it will use that number to connect, right? So here also, if I am expecting the website should be accessible using the name, the simple thing is the name has to be resoluted into the IP address. That's it, right? Resoluting a name into the IP will be done by a one more service. The service name is DNS. Like anything will be a service case, okay? So DNS is the service name which is responsible to resolute a name to the IP or a IP to the name. It will do the both things. If you give the name, the DNS service will give you the IP. If you give the IP, the DNS will give you the name. So the vice versa it will work. Now I need a DNS service that has to be configured with this mapping information, and that will take care of that. The DNS service, rather you install yourself and you manage yourself, because the service has to be operative over the internet world, right? So for that, we need to use the external parties basically. The other thing, whenever you are using the name to access your website, this name should be a unique in the world, correct? Because this name is something that you are operating in the internet world, right? So if I am expecting that whoever is running www.edshopper.com, always this website should come, then this name should be unique in the world, and you should purchase this name on your name, and then you will become the owner of the name. Then you go and do some configurations there. When it goes to the DNS world, the website name, whatever you see here, this is called as a domain name. Like terminologies keep on changing, guys, nothing much. www.edshopper.com is called as a website name. In that, edshopper.com is the domain name. www is called as a resource name. That's a terminology. Basically, when I go to the DNS technology, right, your website name is divided into two pieces. The starting www is called as a resource name. After that, whatever you see, that is called as a domain name. So this domain name should be unique in the world when it comes to internet accessibility. So I need to purchase this domain name first of all. So go to Google and say domain sellers. There are multiple third-party companies who are there for you to sell the domain names. You can see here ionos.com, domain.com, namecheap.com. There will be many, guys, right? Domains, there are many. So you can choose any company that you like it to buy a domain name. Like you can go and get a mobile number from any cellular network, right? You really don't worry how those cellular networks are managing to give you a unique number, correct? Whatever the number that you get it, the number is like unique in the world. How they are ensuring that, you don't know. You don't need to as well. You pay something, the cellular network will give you one unique number, you use it. Same way, the name that you wanted to, you go and purchase it from the specific domain sellers, and they will manage how to make this unique by contacting the 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 organization who is managing all these domains, right? And you can see all of this here. So in our case, I am actually using the domain seller like a GoDaddy. GoDaddy is the company which is offering or selling the domains for you. You need to go and search for the domain availability and buy it. Let's say I want to run a business on this website name, and you search for the domain name. You see that this particular domain is already taken by someone. You can't use it now, right? Like that, you need to search for the domain. Whenever the domain is available, you purchase the domain, you pay to GoDaddy people, you become the owner of this domain, then you get an opportunity to configure this domain as per your need. Right? So in my case, I have some domains already purchased from GoDaddy. I'll just use those existing ones to show you how the mapping work. I just have logged into my GoDaddy account in this case. Let me go to my domains. Right. So here I can see some domains. Okay, that's cool. Let me go to this domain. You see here at shopper.com, right? So this is the domain that I have purchased from GoDaddy people, and I can see here the DNS setup manage something like this. Let me click on this DNS. Okay, so this is where you can see uh, the information, right? Basically, this is where you can do some settings to ensure that this name is actually converting into your IP address, your EC2 server IP address. Okay. I'll come back to the screen again. If you want to purchase a domain from the AWS itself, then the AWS is offering the domains using the a service called Route 53. You go to the Route 53 service in the AWS, and here also you can purchase a domain. Go to Route 53 like dashboard. Under the domain section, go to register domains. Then search for the domain name, like register a domain. Search for the domain name. If the domain is available, you purchase it. You see that it's not available, something like this. If the domain is available, you can select it and go with the payment process, and it will be done. In the AWS, the domain is not part of the free tier. Obviously, it will not be free tier, right? Because this is not specific to the AWS. If they are giving the domain for you, this domain is blocked across the internet world, right? No one can use the same domain name. So this is not part of the free tier. We need to pay and get the domain. It's up to you. You get a domain from AWS or from GoDaddy or from a different vendor. Doesn't matter, right? Wherever you have purchased a domain, that vendor will become the domain registrar. The domain registrar is the term that we use here. The domain registrar will be maintaining some servers to store the mapping information. Like I'll be telling to the domain registrar, right? Hey, this name should be converted into this IP address. Please save this information. And whenever the clients are using this name in the browsers to access the website, you please send the response back, correct? So these domain registers, wherever you have purchased a domain, will be maintaining this mapping information in the servers called name servers. If you look into this presentation one more time, right, you see here, this particular client is now hitting www.edshopper.com in the browser to get a website, right? First, the request will be sending to the DNS servers. Hey, what is the IP of this name? The request will be sending to the DNS server. The DNS server responsible to give the IP back to the requester. Whoever has been asked this question, hey, this is the IP of this name. That's how the response will be given by the DNS server's case, right? So the DNS servers that you are seeing here, this DNS server is the very immediate available DNS server from your internet perspective. I mean to say, let's say your client laptop is connected to one internet service, correct? That internet service provider, right? It could be a Spectrum, it could be a Google, it could be a like Airtel, or it could be any, right? Whichever the service provider that you have been taken the internet service, those service providers are maintaining one DNS server at their organization level. So by default, when you are accessing the website name on the browser, the request will send to the DNS server maintaining by the internet service providers. If these DNS servers are not having a answer for this question, then this DNS server is forwarding the same question to the actual domain registers who are authoritative to store this information at their level. In this case, let's say GoDaddy is the domain register where I have purchased a domain, right? The GoDaddy company is actually maintaining a server for us. In that server, the GoDaddy company is keeping your edshopper.com domain information, right? Like for www resource, right? The value, the output will be, or the response will be so and so IP address. This is how the resource records information will be get stored for your domain in the GoDaddy servers. You are paying to GoDaddy company, and hence the reason the GoDaddy company is maintaining a server and keeping this resource records for your domain in their servers. The servers where the domain register is storing the information, that server is called as a DNS server in a shortcut name server. So can I use the statement like this, guys? GoDaddy is maintaining a name server for you, and in the name servers it is keeping all the resource record information of your domain. Whoever is requesting for the resolution, the GoDaddy will check for the records, it will give the response back. Are you good with this statement? Usually, yes, the GoDaddy is the guy who is maintaining our records in their servers. Good. We are paying and they are maintaining somehow. We don't need to worry how they are managing, right? Whenever the client is actually looking for a resolution, right? The client request is not going to the GoDaddy servers directly if you observe this behavior, right? Whenever the client is looking for the resolution, the request will go to the DNS server, which is also called as a local DNS server. Sometimes this is called as a caching DNS server, right? Or a forwarder DNS server. The different names are there, right? Then this DNS server, right? Whatever is in the middle, this DNS server is maintaining by the internet service provider company. If they don't have an answer for that, then those guys are forwarding it to the actual authoritative name servers. Once the authoritative name server is giving the response back, these local DNS servers will keep that answer internally, and the same answer will be given back to the client. What's the advantage? The advantage is the second time when the same client is trying to access the same website, right? When the request come to the local DNS server, the local DNS server says that, hey, I know the answer of, like, I know the IP of this name. I don't need to ask the GoDaddy again. So the local server itself will be giving the response back to you. What's the advantage, guys? That's the reason usually the very first time when you are accessing the website, it will be loading very slowly, right? The second time onwards, you observe, right? The website page will be loaded little bit faster. Why? The first time when you are accessing the website, it has to send the request to local DNS server, then go to the authoritative name server, get the response. Overall, it take time. The second time onwards, your local server itself will give you the answer. It need not to send it to the GoDaddy. So the performance will be good. It will be like more speed. I mean to say the latency will be less. Also, across the world, all the people need not to send to GoDaddy for getting these answers, correct? If that is the case, the GoDaddy servers will be overburdened and that servers will go unresponsive. So across the world, every internet service provider are maintaining their own local DNS servers so that it need not to send to GoDaddy every time, guys. Right? The very first time it will ask, then it will maintain that answer in a cache for some duration. So it itself can resolute for you so that the latency will be less. All these things will happen behind the screen. I'm explaining all this just to understand how the things works in a real time when you are hitting a website, what's happening behind the screen. But when it comes to the implementation, I don't need to worry about this local DNS server, all this. All I need to worry about is your domain register and how to add our resource records in the domain register. That's it. They'll take care of everything. Correct? So in this scenario, right? Where is my GoDaddy? Right? In this scenario, I went to the GoDaddy because that is where my domain is registered. Now you can see here the name server section. Give me a second, guys. I'll be keep on doing some changes, right? So give me a second. I'm just preparing the scenario for you. Okay, yeah. So if you look into this screen, it says that the name servers, you see, these are the two name servers that the GoDaddy is actually maintaining at their company level. And these name servers are actually storing our mapping information. Good. How you are expecting it to be resoluted? You go to the DNS record section here and you add a record here, right? So already some records are there. We can edit them as well. Okay. But for now, let me add a new. Add a new record. Hey GoDaddy, www.edshopper.com should be resoluted to a so-and-so IP address, correct? That's my requirement. Where is my EC to IP? You just need to give the mapping there. That's it. Which name should resolute to which IP? You just need to update and save it over there. Then GoDaddy will take care of that. This is my IP, right? This is my EC2 IP. Take that IP, come to your domain register account. www is my resource name. Already I have selected my domain name here. The value is your IP address. When you are expecting the name to be resoluted into a IP, that type of the record is called as a record. When you are adding a record, the record has multiple types. You need to choose the type which you wanted to, right? If you are expecting the name to be resoluted to IP, that is called as a record. You select the type as A over there. Click on save. The record name conflict with other record. It is telling that there is one record already there with the same name, so it can't add one more. That's okay. I'll edit the same one. I'll go to the existing one. I will edit it. The type is a www, right? It has to resolute to a IP address and save it. That's it. You are done. Now onwards, whenever you are using www.edshopper.com, the request will be resoluted to this IP, that is your EC2 IP, and your website should work there. Whenever you have updated a record like this, it will take some time to propagate the changes. Sometimes it may be quick, sometimes it may take time as well. In this case, you see, now my website is accessible using the name, guys. This is the name of the website that I'm using in. What's happening behind the screen? The moment when you use this website name, it will send to local DNS server, it will send to GoDaddy name servers, GoDaddy will give the response back, and then it will send it to that IP. Your EC2 server get the request, EC2 will be responding back, and finally my website is loaded. Now, so here I'm using the GoDaddy in order to maintain the resource records of my domain, right? So the server is running in AWS cloud. You see, the EC2 server is in AWS cloud, but the DNS resolution is happening by the GoDaddy. That's okay. This is just converting the name to IP address. Anyone can do that. But sometimes, you may feel difficulty to manage the two vendors, right? So I need to work on AWS to create my servers, and I need to log into GoDaddy to manage my resource records. So can I maintain the resource records in the AWS itself? Yes, it is possible. Why? The AWS is also offering the Route 53, right? The Route 53 is the service which is offering the DNS services for you. Can I purchase the same domain here, guys? No, right? Like the edshopper.com domain is already purchased at a GoDaddy level. I can't purchase the same domain again in the AWS. It will say that, hey, the domain is already taken care. We have multiple options now. One, you can go with the transfer option and you transfer the domain from the GoDaddy to here, so that once the transfer is successful, your domain will be available in the GoDaddy, sorry, in the AWS itself, not in the GoDaddy. That is one option to do the transfer. Once the domain is came here, you manage the resource records in the Route 53 only. You don't need to go to GoDaddy, right? The second option is you go to the hosted zone, right? Let me remove this for now. I'm just doing some cleanup, guys. Okay, so now you go to the hosted zone tab here. As of now, there are no hosted zones. All what we can do is create a hosted zone. The hosted zone name is @shopper.com, which is like a domain name only, and select public hosted zone because I want this website to be accessible from public internet, right? And create a hosted zone. When you create a hosted zone like this, the AWS is creating a name servers for you. You see these name servers? Like basically AWS is creating two records for you by default. One record type NS referring name server. These are the four name servers that are created for you by the AWS to keep your resource records. Generally, multiple name servers will be maintained to store the records, because if one server is down, there is another server to give you the answer, right? That's the reason multiple will be there. Out of these four, whichever the name server that is acting as a primary, that is called as a statement of authority name server, and you see the answer. it will be definitely one of these. Out of these four, the first one is acting as a SOA record or the statement of authority, which is the authoritative name server. But either the way, like the AWS has created four name servers for you where it is going to store the resource records. Now what I can do, right? In this hosted zone, I can create a record saying that www.adshopper.com of type a record should be resoluted to this particular IP address, add a resource records and click on create a record. Now you see that www.adshopper.com should be resoluted to this EC2 IP address. I'm maintaining the records in AWS itself. A question for you at this time. If at this time, if I am accessing my website using www.adshopper.com and hit enter, tell me guys, your name is resoluted into a IP by GoDaddy or by AWS? Because at this time in the AWS, I added a record saying that the name should be resoluted to IP in the hosted zone section. In the GoDaddy also, I added a record saying that the www should be resoluted to this IP, right? In both places I did at this time. Who is helping me here to give the resolution, right? Always the request will be going to the GoDaddy register only. In my case, in AWS, I just created a hosted zone. Is not mean that this is registered with them. No, right? The domain is registered with the GoDaddy, so always the request will go to GoDaddy only. The GoDaddy will check for the name server's information. This domain information is currently saved in which name server. It will look into the name server. Then that name server will be taken care of, giving you the response. As of now, the name servers, whatever I see here, these are the GoDaddy name servers, and GoDaddy will definitely do the resolution for you. If you don't want the GoDaddy name servers giving the resolution, if you are expecting the AWS has to do, in the GoDaddy, you change the name servers, go with your own name servers, then whichever the name servers that the AWS has created for you to maintain the records, you copy this name server and you update in the GoDaddy. Hey GoDaddy, I want to use these name servers to give the resolution. That's how we need to maintain or update these name servers into GoDaddy level. Then whenever the request come to GoDaddy, GoDaddy will know that, okay, the records are not with me, the records are with other name servers. So the request will be sending to AWS name servers only. If I refresh this page, now you see I'm having AWS name servers. So now if anyone is accessing www.adshopper.com, right, the request will go to AWS name servers, and AWS name servers are storing the information based on the records that you have added here. So that's how, though the domain is purchased at a GoDaddy, but still I can manage my records in the AWS also by doing this name server mapping. That is the reason in the GoDaddy, now if you look into the DNS record section, it is not showing anything. You see, no, I can't give you any information here because the name servers are not managing by us. It is someone else. Now if I'm accessing the website, tell me guys, who is giving the resolution for you? It will be AWS, because I have already updated the records in the GoDaddy here. Like name server is already updated. That is how you need to manage the DNS with the help of these domain registers. It's up to you. You add records in third party, or you do this name server mapping and maintain the records in the AWS Route 53 host zone itself, whichever is convenient. Creating a hosted zone and maintaining the records is not part of the free tier. There will be $0.5 per month is chargeable for creating a hosted zone and maintaining a records, guys. So before me closing for today, I really wanted to have a website with a little more beautiful, right? So let me put some real-time code which is giving a more beautiful website. I think I have the website code already with me. Of course, the ChatGPT will give us, but I have the code already. I'll keep that code over there. Don't worry about what is Bitbucket, how I'm getting this code and all. I just wanted to show you the real website. So I just need to install the package called git git. I need to install the git package. Now I need to run the command called git clone. This command is actually downloading the website code. The code is downloaded to this location. So this is the code, guys. I have the index.html, some images, some other content, right? This entire code, I wanted to keep it in the var www.html location, right? cp is the command to copy the files. I want to copy the files recursively, forcefully, from the present working direction location. All the files, whatever I see here, I want to copy to var www.html location. Now if you see ls-l var www.html location, I copied all the content. I downloaded the code from git clone command. What is git clone? We'll talk about once we enter into DevOps. For now, I just want to download the code. I just used this command. Then I copied the code to this location. Now my document root folder has the HTML based website code. Now if I access my website www.edshopper.com and hit enter, here you go. This is how your website look like. It's kind of a real-time website, right? So all the images, all the text, logo, whatever you see, everything is now coming from your EC2 server. You see this logo, this image, everything is coming from this server, guys. So here actually there is a images folder, right? In the images folder, all the images are there, right? All these images are actually transferred and those are showing you as a website, and that's how it is appearing here. So that is how the developers has or written the HTML code, but we don't need to worry about how the code is written. Our responsibility is only to prepare a EC2 server, check the security group, install the web server software, start the services. If the developer give you the code, you copy the code to the location. That's it. It will be done. If your website is accessible, your job is done. That's it. The actually writing the code is something the developers will be doing. We don't need to worry about it. So happy that we are able to see a website as like a real time how it is, and it is operative from our EC2 server. We can even mimic the things here. Systemctl stop HTTPD. Now can I access the website, guys? Website is down. See, the website is down. Why? The request is refused. Why? The service which is responsible to listen on port number 80 and give you the response, that is currently not running. Obviously the website is down. Systemctl start HTTPD. Now access it, you are getting the website again. That's the magic. Well team, I think that's the story for today, and today is a bit of interesting session too, right? As a goal, in a real time, right, your job responsibility is to maintain this web servers always running fine. If your web servers are not running, your website is down, and that it will be an impact because the people can't use your website for purchasing services, right? So you need to maintain your web servers are running always good. It could be a security group, could be a EC2, could be a HTTPD service or whatnot. Whatever is needed to run a website, everything should be running fine. Any questions, do let me know, guys, or else we are good for today. This is just introductory session to understand how the websites will run. We'll go deeper and deeper. We'll talk more improvements on this. Thank you. Now, to answer the questions, right, uh, if I go to /etc/httpd/conf location and open the httpd.conf file, which is the settings file, which is the configuration file for the Apache web server software, right? So this file has the settings, right? You see this, listen 80. By default, Apache web server is listening on 80. If you don't like 80, yes, you go with any port number that you like it, guys. Right? I can change this. 80 I can change to 81 and you restart your service. Then onwards your Apache web server will listen on 81, not on 80. Yes, we can do the change. Right? Not only here, any software, any application that you take on, by default it has some settings. If you want, yes, we can go and do the changes and restart the services possible. But most likely no one will do these changes. Why? If you make it as 81 as an example, the client also should know, right? The client should know that your website is listening. I mean to say your website will be reachable on 81 port number. But usually whoever is accessing my website, those guys are sending it on a default port which is 80. So if you change your web server to 81, you need to inform to all of your clients that hey, 81 is my port number, because they have to send the request on 81 only. Getting me? So if you are okay for that, yes, change the port number and inform to all of your clients. But that's not feasible, at least when it comes to the public websites, right? And of course, when you are changing to 81, you update the security group also to listen on port number, sorry, to allow the port number 81 only, right? and inform to clients to send the request on 81. Everything has to be changed. Right? So in this scenario, probably, right? So the IP address will be changing, right? Whenever you stop and start the server. Maybe this is where you need to have the elastic IP. Get a one permanent public IP and configure it, because I don't want the IP to be changing in the DNS each and every time, right? So get elastic IP, configure it, and update the DNS. So though your server is stop and start, still your website will not have any impact, because your name is resoluting it into the same IP always, and that IP will not change, right? So that's how it works. Cool. Any questions, do let me know, guys, or else we are good for today. And yes, we'll keep on doing the improvements on this. Right. So as I said in our previous presentation here, right, the web applications are accessible on two port numbers. One is 80, one is 443. Today I talked about 80. We'll talk about 443 port number HTTPS, which is requiring some SSL certificates. So that concept we'll talk later. This is little more complicated, so we'll take this up in upcoming lectures. Thank you.
So on 25, there will be a leave holiday. 25.
Interesting. Yeah, yes. So I'll update the admin to send you the communication. Yes, there will be a leave. There will be a
Because
holiday.
25, it is Monday only. 25.
That's okay. You will get a notification today sometime. Well, I don't see any questions or concerns there. Thank you.